There are some names that become names of horrors beyond belief, beyond comprehension. We just can't understand how anyone could do that to anyone, how people could do that to people. Auschwitz. And horrors are not always about scale. One is one too many. In Ukraine, that name that's become the name of horror is this little town Bucha on the outskirts of Kiev, a small leafy little suburb, typical of Europe, with thatched houses and tiled roofs here and there, a few building blocks, people living around one another, a quiet life. This became the object of a Russian attack to begin with. Houses were bombed, burnt out. 6 months on, many of them remain burnt out. They haven't been repaired. People either don't have the heart to do it or they don't have the money to do it. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it was uncovered when Russian forces left on the 1st of April. Some facts about Bucha are now incontrovertible after all those allegations and those early reports that we all struggled to believe. A United Nations inquiry is underway and it has updated its findings only last week. And we know now from that inquiry that 458 people were killed here. Of them, 419 were killed violently with weapons, and these included 9 children below the age of 18. Bodies were found mutilated. People had been tortured. Most bodies were found with hands tied behind the back. Widespread reports surfaced of mass rapes in this town, many involving minors. People here were brutalized, terrorized. People hid in their homes. They were dragged out of their homes. Many of them were tortured. Many were killed. No pleas helped. People were frightened, living in their own homes. There was no help to hand. Nobody could understand, not even the authorities could understand the scale of the atrocities, and there were no authorities who could have stepped in when the place was under Russian control. And to date, the Russians are denying this. The United Nations reports simply that there were that many deaths. It does not say who killed them. Clearly, we know what the Ukrainians say, that it was the Russians. The United Nations is not taking a position on that, given the Russian denial. The Russian position is that this was all fake news. Not that the deaths were fake, but the fake news that the Russians did it. They say, they allege that it is the Ukrainians who did that in order to defame the Russians. It's really hard to see how that could be, how Zelensky could possibly have ordered, or any Ukrainian official could have ordered this kind of crime against their own people just to make a point in the media against the Russians. The United Nations inquiry is seeking to come to some firm conclusions on who did it, but the UN is known to take careful positions rather than being known for any incisive investigations. But this now is a place for memory that needs to be buried. People are struggling to cope with it. People have not yet come to terms with it, and they are not forgetting. The country remains at war, and Bucha is determined that it will fight back. People around the country are determined that they will fight back, that they will get Russians to pay a price for the atrocities they've committed, as they did here in Bucha.